Welcome to Kairos Research Center podcast. Christian faith seeking understanding, intellectual witness, and spiritual renewal.
Okay, Dr. Leong, thanks for clearing the case of contradiction. Your interpretation of Ecclesiastes, if it's correct, will remove the supposed pessimism and contradictions in the book. And you have done it without resorting to the device of saying under the sun means we leave God out of your life. You're taking the book on its terms. Now you have emphasized that the theme in Ecclesiastes should be all is vanity, rather than what NIV suggests, everything is meaningless. But still, NIV translation pretty popular. So in that case, it would be good if you elaborate on why the correct understanding of the theme of Ecclesiastes should actually be all is vanity.
Okay. There is no dispute that the Hebrew word translated meaningless in the NIV Bible basically means breath or vapor. It is a vapor that we see when someone breathes into cold air. It is fleeting. It appears and disappears. In Ecclesiastes, the basic meaning of the word is still vapor, which is fleeting. So the word often refers to something fleeting. In some contexts of Ecclesiastes, we should retain the basic meaning, fleeting. For instance, Ecclesiastes 11:10 should be translated as this: youth and the prime of life are fleeting. In fact, this is how the HCSB and CSB render the verse. Similarly, the NASB renders it as childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. However, the ESV renders it as youth and the dawn of life are vanity. This makes Ecclesiastes unnecessarily pessimistic. Worse still, the NIV renders it as youth and vigor are meaningless. The 1995 and earlier editions of the NASB correctly renders Ecclesiastes 9:9 this way: enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life, which he has given you under the sun. However, the 2020 edition of the NASB changes your fleeting life to your futile life. Worse still, the NIV renders the verse as enjoy life with your wife whom you love all the days of this meaningless life that God has given you under the sun. So God has given us a meaningless life. How then can one enjoy life with his wife? The NIV makes Ecclesiastes unnecessarily depressing. Now, if the basic meaning of the Hebrew word is fleeting, why then render the theme of Ecclesiastes as all is vanity and not all is fleeting? And all is fleeting means everything is profitless. Is this not pessimistic? Again, the context matters. The theme is first presented at the very beginning of the speech in 1:2. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher. Vanity of vanity is all is vanity, ESV. It is repeated virtually verbatim towards the end of the speech in 12:8. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher. All is vanity. So the speech is about all is vanity. In these two verses, the meaning behind all is vanity is still all is fleeting. But in both contexts, all is fleeting carries the nuance everything is meaningless. And this is not pessimistic. Let us take a look at the respective contexts. Let's begin by reading 1:2 in light of 1:3. 1:2. Vanities of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity, that is fleeting. What profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? Now this is from the NRSV, or rather this is from the NKJV. I prefer this translation here because 1:3 has the word profit instead of the less accurate gain or advantage in the other translations. It is obvious that 1:3 is a rhetorical question. The implied answer is there is no profit under the sun. Read in context, all is fleeting in 1:2 corresponds to this implied answer. This means 1:2 says all is fleeting. Then 1:3 reaffirms what is just said with a rhetorical question that means there is no profit under the sun. Therefore, all is fleeting here means there is no profit under the sun. That is, everything is profitless. But why is that? Because all is fleeting, then everything is meaningless. In other words, why is that something fleeting is also profitless? When 1:3 says there is no profit under the sun, it is in the context that we all have to die. This is indicated in 1:4. A generation goes, a generation comes. A generation goes means we all have to die. This is confirmed by the repetition of the theme in 12:8. In that context, all is fleeting corresponds to what he just said in the previous verse, 12:7. And the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. There is no doubt this verse means we all have to die. In other words, we all have to die. And when we die, we cannot take with us anything we have gained. So all that we have gained under the sun do not last. They are temporary, that is, fleeting like vapor. And because they are temporary, they will eventually become profitless to us. So all this fleeting means everything is profitless. This is actually spelled out in Ecclesiastes 5, verse 15 and 16. Referring to a man who lost money, the text says, "As he came from his mother's womb, naked shall he return, to go as he came, and he shall take nothing from his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. Just exactly as he came, so shall he go. So, what profit has he who has labored for the wind? Hence, there is no profit under the sun, because just as we came into this world empty-handed, we will leave this world empty-handed. From the time we were born to the time we die, there is no net gain. That is, no profit. So all is vanity." We must recognize that 1:3 says there is no profit under the sun, only with respect to the things gained through human labor in this world. This means only temporal and material things. So the all in all is fleeting, that are eventually profitless, refers only to temporal and material things. The text makes no reference to spiritual or eternal things. Thus, everything is profitless excludes spiritual or eternal things. Some people fail to understand this and so see pessimism in Ecclesiastes. We must also recognize that everything is profitless does not mean there is no profit whatsoever from the things we gain in this world. For instance, in Ecclesiastes 2:13-14, it acknowledges that there is value in wisdom and the advantage of laboring with wisdom. A wise man will be more successful in life than a foolish one in terms of temporal and material things. But 2:14-17 qualifies that both the wise man and the foolish one have to die and leave behind everything they have gained. Thus, even laboring with wisdom is ultimately futile, because all the things gained through wisdom is ultimately profitless. So there can be immediate profits, but not ultimate profits under the sun. This is the meaning of the theme of Ecclesiastes, and it is clearly realism and not pessimism as commonly understood. As a side note, though the theme of Ecclesiastes means everything is profitless, it is better to render it as all is vanity. This is because the Hebrew word translated vanity can mean either profitless or futile. And the English word vanity can also mean either profitless or futile. It means profitless when it refers to the fleeting things we gain or pursue after. It means futile when it refers to the effort expended to pursue after these things. If what we pursue after is profitless, our efforts in pursuing it is futile. In some contexts, as in Ecclesiastes 4:4-8, vanity refers to the futile efforts in pursuing things that are profitless.
Okay, I think listening to you, the detailed analysis and exegetical support provided by you, I would say is quite convincing that the traditional rendering of the theme of Ecclesiastes, all is vanity, is exegetically sound. But still, can't help but observe that in recent times, even among evangelicals, there's a tendency to understand the theme to be everything is meaningless. I wonder how come. Is this in any way related to the way people actually experience meaninglessness in modern society?
Okay. Yes. Jewish biblical scholar Michael Fox renders the theme of Ecclesiastes as everything is absurd. It is most helpful to consider why he does that. He himself says, toil may be futile, but the fact that toil is futile is absurd. This means he recognizes that the Hebrew word he translates as absurd in and of itself does not mean absurd, but rather it means futile, that is, vanity. However, the fact that toil is futile evokes the reaction that it is absurd. So he is not translating the meaning of the Hebrew word, which is futile, but a reaction to that meaning. The same is true of rendering the theme as everything is meaningless. The fact that toil is futile can also evoke the response that it is meaningless. This is a pessimistic response to the reality that toil is ultimately futile. But why is there such a response? The reality that toil is futile is not acceptable to people who put their hopes in the things of this world. This includes most people living in the modern world. They have such a pessimistic response because if all is vanity, it is indeed meaningless or absurd to put their hopes in the things of this world. People living in the modern world, especially in somber moments, do find life meaningless, if not absurd. In fact, translating the theme as everything is meaningless strikes a responsive chord in the heart of most people today. However, not everyone responds pessimistically to the reality that all is vanity. There are still people, though not many, who do not put their hopes in the things of this world. The reality that all is vanity need not evoke in them the sense that everything is meaningless. They recognize and accept that when they die, they cannot take with them anything they have gained in this world. So the most sensible or meaningful thing to do is to enjoy what they have when they still have them. Thus, they respond realistically to the reality that all is vanity. As you have seen, this realistic response to the vanity of life is actually a sub-theme and a crucial teaching of Ecclesiastes. So Ecclesiastes is not pessimistic just because many people today respond to the theme of the speech pessimistically. It is true that the rhetorical question in 1:3 comes with a somber tone. It can easily be misinterpreted as conveying pessimism. But it is no more pessimistic than the somber rhetorical question that Jesus Christ asked. What profits a man to gain the whole world and forfeits his soul? Mark 8:36. In fact, Jesus has commanded his followers, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Matthew 6:19-21. So there is such a thing as treasures in heaven. That is, spiritual or eternal profits that can be laid up while still living under the sun. As an Old Testament book, Ecclesiastes makes no reference to such profits. But Ecclesiastes is particularly relevant to help Christians to obey the command of Jesus to lay up treasures in heaven and not on earth. Followers of Jesus who are committed to obey this command face a major obstacle. Being human and living in a covetous world, they are under the pressure to conform to the world in laying up treasures on earth. This must have led Henry Martyn, a 19th century missionary, to pray an unusual prayer. Now, he was known for forsaking all for Christ, and he prayed, may I have Christ here with me in the world, not substituting imagination in the place of faith, but seeing outward things as they really are, and thus obtaining a radical conviction of their vanity. He was praying that he would obtain a radical conviction that the things of this world are indeed what Ecclesiastes say they are, vanity. It makes sense why one who seeks to forsake all for Christ would pray such a prayer. This is because a radical conviction that the things of this world are indeed vanity will set his heart free to truly follow Jesus, to obey his command, to lay up treasures not on earth but in heaven. Ecclesiastes is specifically designed to help cultivate just such a conviction. People like Henry Martyn would see Ecclesiastes as God's answer to their prayer. To them, all this vanity is most meaningful. Thus, they respond optimistically to the reality that there is no profit under the sun. And of course, this optimistic response can go hand in hand with the realistic response taught in Ecclesiastes, which is to have enjoyment in life. So according to the Bible, it is possible to have the best of both worlds, this and the next. This brings us back to why the theme of Ecclesiastes should be rendered as all is vanity and not everything is meaningless. Everything is meaningless presumes a pessimistic response to all is vanity. So it precludes the realistic and the optimistic responses, the two responses that empower Christians to have the best of both worlds. As for non-Christians, they will likely respond to all is vanity pessimistically. Everything is meaningless. So the same message still gets to them.